From the towering spires of the Zalrith Council's observation chamber, cold eyes watch humanity's fleet assembling in silent defiance. Confused and terrified by humanity's audacity, the Council hesitates, blinded by arrogance. Meanwhile, aboard the human warship Vigilance, quiet tension simmers before a decisive, chilling message is sent. This ends now. The power balance shifts forever. The chamber was vast, a cathedral of obsidian crystal and dim, pulsating light. A dozen Zalrith elders stood rigid, faces taut with disbelief, as the view screens flickered with grainy images from the edge of their territory. The panorama showed ships unlike any the galaxy had catalogued before, colossal, monstrous, and utterly silent as they gathered in formation beyond the cold void. "They are preparing something," hissed Elder Jivrak, his mandibles twitching in horror. "Deathworld-class vessels, Earth's engines, this is madness." Across the room, Elder Venthra shook her head. "No civilized species dares field such beasts. We've dismissed their warnings for centuries, but this is no bluff. Are we to believe the primitive species we deemed irrelevant has become our executioner?" The council chambers echoed with whispers, but no consensus formed. Fear was creeping, a cold poison in their veins. Each elder tried to mask it with stern deliberation, but the truth was clear. They had underestimated humanity. Deep within the command deck of the human flagship Vigilance, Commander Elena Marks watched the alien transmissions in silence. Her dark eyes glinted beneath the war helmet as she keyed the comm. "All stations," she said softly, voice measured but heavy with resolve. "The Council doesn't believe us. They think our warning is a bluff. I won't let their arrogance cost us more lives. Ready the graviton pulse. Tonight we show them the price of ignoring Earth." Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Amir Chen, nodded, fingers dancing across a hollow interface, activating nano-plasma grids and cloaking arrays. "Shields at maximum, Commander. Cloak is stable, but the graviton pulse is a one-shot weapon. We must strike precisely." Outside the viewport, stars seemed to hold their breath as Earth's Deathworld-class ships slipped through the darkness, massive silhouettes blotting out distant suns. The engines thrummed with cold power, nanotech running systems invisible to alien sensors, gravity distortion fields bending light and time. Back in the Zalrith chamber, the lead observer's antennae twitched erratically as data flooded in. "They're engaging cloaking. Impossible. Our scans show nothing. It's as if they vanish from space itself." Panic blossomed. The ancient protocols, the final defense lines, are failing. Their ships bypass every system. Why are they like this? What drives this savage persistence? Venthra's eyes glazed with dread. They do not fight for conquest. They fight for survival and vengeance. Then the communication channel shattered with static, the only message piercing the silence: "This ends now." The chamber fell into stunned silence. Outside, the darkness shattered as gravity pulses warped the fabric of space itself. The Deathworld fleet was no longer distant threats, it was here, and the Council's rule trembled on the edge of oblivion. The Zalrith Council reels from the shock of humanity's stealth assault, scrambling to mount a desperate defense. Meanwhile, aboard the Vigilance, Commander Marks and her crew push deeper into hostile space, confronting not just alien ships, but the psychological weight of their mission. Humanity's cold precision meets alien panic, escalating the war beyond expectations. The alien defenses blinked and died like dying stars. Kernels of panic erupted across the Zalrith command net. The Council's grand fleets, vessels once believed invincible, were vanishing one by one into ghostly silence. Graviton pulses tore through their shields with surgical precision. Cloaked Deathworld ships twisted through the void like phantoms, immune to targeting scanners. Elder Jivrak slammed his claw on the observation console, sending shards of crystal to skitter across the floor. "They break every defense we built. For a millennium, this isn't mere war. They're rewriting the rules. How can such primitive beings wield this power? Venthra's antennae drooped. Our arrogance blinded us to Earth's true nature. We judge them by their crude past, forgetting Deathworld's forge killers unlike any other. They don't seek glory. They seek survival by extinction. Below, humanity's vigilance slipped through shattered battle lines, a spectre among the wreckage. Commander Mark's gaze was fixed, her breath steady as she surveyed damage reports and crew status. We've lost contact with Fleet Alpha. Lieutenant Chen, reroute all sensor arrays to passive mode. If they're tracking emissions, we're dead. Chen's fingers flew. Passive mode engaged. Scans show an approaching cruiser, unknown class, cloaked. Our nanotech disruptors should keep it blind for minutes at best. The ship shuddered violently. A gravity spike rocked the vigilance. Marks gritted her teeth. Brace for impact. Prepare countermeasures. From the shadowed viewport, a colossal alien cruiser materialized from the darkness, a behemoth lined. With phosphorescent runes and pulsing weapons arrays, its massive hull glittered with anti-grav shielding, an embodiment of cold precision and ancient power. "Why do they fight like this?" whispered Captain Solon, a scientist aboard the Vigilance. "The destruction is methodical, almost ritualistic. They're not just attacking, they're punishing." Marks nodded slowly. "They fear us, not just as warriors, but as ghosts of their failures. They thought Earth's silence was weakness. Instead, it's the calm before annihilation." Silence fell over the bridge. A pause, heavy with dread and determination. Then the ship's comm crackled again. This time a voice, human, firm, without a trace of fear. "This is Commander Marks of the United Earth Defense Fleet. Your defenses are obsolete. Surrender or be extinguished." No response came. Only the cold thrum of alien weapons powering up. Outside, the void trembled as Deathworld-Class ships advanced, cloaked death delivered by humanity's unseen hand. The Council's illusions shattered with every pulse. Earth was no longer a backwater. It was the nightmare come alive. As the alien fleets falter, panic and chaos consume the Zalrith. Humanity's warships press forward, navigating through darkness and devastation. Commander Marks confronts the emotional toll of their mission, while a mysterious human scientist unveils a secret weapon that could turn the tide. The shadow of annihilation looms large for all. The Zalrith command nexus was crumbling beneath. The weight of human assault. Sirens wailed through obsidian halls. Tactical hollows flickered erratically. Elder Venthra's mandibles trembled as she stared into the void filled with human silhouettes, ghosts among the stars. Unstoppable and invisible. "The final line has fallen," she whispered, voice cracking. "We are exposed, vulnerable, hunted." Meanwhile, aboard the Vigilance, Commander Marks sat rigid in her chair, the weight of every lost life pressing on her chest like a star collapsing. Around her, the crew fought exhaustion and fear, but the mission demanded relentless precision. "Status." "Report," she said, voice steel. Lieutenant Chen tapped rapidly. "Cloak integrity holding, but only just. The cruiser we encountered is attempting a quantum destabilizer charge. If it succeeds, it'll rip our hull apart." Mark's eyes narrowed. "Countermeasures?" "Deploying nanoswarm. Should disrupt." "Destabilizer now." A shimmer enveloped the hull as microscopic drones swarmed outward, dismantling the energy buildup on the alien weapon. The pulse faded. "Good," Marks exhaled, "but we can't keep dodging forever." At a nearby station, Dr. Lydia Tran, the lead human scientist, peered into a quantum interface, sweat beading on her brow. "Commander, the graviton pulse wasn't just a weapon, it was a test. Our nanotech arrays are designed to hack and cripple their systems at a fundamental level." Marks leaned in. "So what? We break their ships from the inside out?" Tran nodded slowly. "Exactly. We're turning their own tech against them. If we can push this further, we might disable their entire fleet's cohesion. A sudden alert interrupted their conversation. Sensors picked up a massive energy spike. Dozens of alien ships converged, weaving coordinated attack patterns. The Vigilance was surrounded. "Battle stations," Marks ordered. "All hands prepare for boarding defense. We're not giving up this fight." Outside, the alien cruisers unleashed torrents of ionized plasma. The Vigilance's shields flared and faltered under the relentless assault. In the Alien War Council, voices cracked with despair. "How do they endure such punishment?" Jivrak demanded. "Their ships should be ashes by now." Venthra answered bitterly. "They are forged from death worlds, survivors of impossible odds. We misread them. They fight not for glory, but for survival itself." Suddenly, the chamber trembled as distant explosions rocked their own command structure. The balance of power was slipping through their fingers like stardust. On the bridge, Marx's voice was quiet but unyielding. "They underestimated humanity. No, they'll learn what it means to face a species that refuses to die quietly." Human and alien forces clash violently in a deadly cosmic maelstrom as the Vigilance leads a desperate strike deeper into enemy territory. Commander Marks faces the crushing burden of command, while alien leaders spiral into panic and rage. Secrets buried in Earth's death world past begin to surface, revealing why humanity's wrath is both terrifying and unstoppable. The void boiled with fire and fury. Plasma bolts tore across the endless black, painting cruel strokes of light against the shattered hulls of alien cruisers. Ships twisted and exploded, showers of debris tumbling into the void like fallen stars. Cloaked human vessels darted through. The chaos, ghostly hunters striking without warning. The Vigilance surged forward, its dark hull absorbing the fury of countless ion blasts. Commander Elena Marks stood rigid on the bridge, watching the maelstrom with cold, calculating eyes. Each explosion, each flash of light, was a silent testament to lives sacrificed and battles won. And yet, the war was only beginning. "Shields, holding at 70%, Lieutenant Chen reported, his voice taut with tension. "Nanotech arrays are infiltrating their systems. We're seeing unexpected failures in their shield generators and weapon controls." Marks nodded. "Never." Blinking, "Keep it steady. Our advantage is slipping if we falter now. We need to strike at the heart of their command fleet." The viewport shimmered, revealing the Alien War Council's flagship, a colossal dreadnought bristling with spires of glowing energy. It was the nerve center of the Zalrith resistance and humanity's prime target. "Dr. Tran, status on." "The quantum destabilizer charges," Marks asked, her voice low. Tran stepped forward, eyes locked on her console. "They're holding, for now, but the enemy's adaptive shields are forcing us to recalibrate the graviton pulse frequency. We'll need another 10 minutes to optimize the disruption matrix." Mark's jaw tightened. 10 minutes could mean death. Prepare an emergency override. If we lose this battle, Earth's defense perimeter collapses. Below decks, the Vigilance's crew braced for boarding. Alien assault pods pierced the ship's cloaking veil, hurtling toward airlocks with deadly intent. "Prepare countermeasures," Marks barked. "Deploy nanoshields on all external bulkheads." Explosions rattled the hull as pods slammed against the ship, disintegrated by swarms of nanodrones that flared like fireflies in the darkness. Still, a few managed to breach the outer hull. Soldiers armed with grav rifles and energy blades clashed in brutal close-quarters combat with Zalrith boarding teams. The corridors echoed with the sharp reports of pulse weapons and the metallic clang of blades meeting armor. Private Rena Vasquez, a young soldier barely out of training, found herself locked in a desperate struggle against a towering Zalrith warrior. The alien's eyes glowed with savage fury as it lunged, but Rena's reflexes were honed by Deathworld survival drills. She dodged, rolling to the side and firing a plasma shot that sent the creature crashing into a bulkhead. "For Earth!" she shouted, her voice raw with adrenaline. Back on the bridge, Mark's mind churned with the weight of command. Every life lost was a mark on her soul, but retreat was unthinkable. The fate of humanity and perhaps the galaxy rested on their success. Suddenly, alarms blared. The Vigilance's sensors picked up a massive energy buildup, an ancient weapon reactivated within the Zalrith flagship. "Quantum destabilizer charge incoming," Chen yelled. "This one's bigger than before." Marks clenched her fists. "Divert all power to forward shields. Fire nanotech swarms, now!" The hull groaned as the ship shook violently. Energy arcs crackled along the hull plating, nanobots racing to neutralize the destabilizing force. But the strain was immense. "Commander," Tran's voice was urgent, "the pulse isn't enough. We need a direct strike, something to break their systems at the source." Mark's eyes narrowed. "You mean board their flagship?" Tran nodded grimly. "It's risky, but if we can disable their command node, it could turn the tide." The bridge fell silent, every eye fixed on Marks. She took a slow breath. "Prepare the boarding party. I'm going with them." Lieutenant Chen blinked in surprise. "Commander?" "No. Arguments," Marks interrupted. "This ends here or we don't come back." Minutes later, clad in reinforced exosuits and armed with grav weapons, the boarding team launched from the Vigilance. The dark expanse swallowed their pods as they streaked toward the alien flagship. Inside the enemy ship, the atmosphere was thick with tension and fear. Zalrith engineers scrambled to contain system failures, their panic palpable. "Report!" a frantic officer barked. "Nanotech infiltration is spreading," another replied. "Shields weakening, weapon arrays offline. We're blind." Elder Venthra appeared in the command chamber, her regal composure shattered by despair. "Summon reinforcements. We cannot let them breach the command node." Jivrak's claws trembled as he stared at the flickering control panels. "We miscalculated humanity's nature. They don't just fight, they infect. Our technology is their weapon." The boarding pods slammed into the flagship's hull with explosive force. Marks and her team burst through, immediately engaged by alien defenders. Corridors echoed with shouts and gunfire. Marks led her team with ruthless efficiency, every move choreographed by countless simulations of Deathworld combat. They reached the command node, a pulsating core of ancient technology, humming with energy. "Plant the disruptor charges," Marks ordered. As the charges activated, a massive shockwave rippled through the ship. Systems flickered and died, the once imposing flagship reduced to a crippled husk. "Retreat!" Marks commanded as alarms blared, structural integrity failing. Back on the Vigilance, sensors confirmed the flagship's collapse. The alien fleet was fracturing. Venthra's voice came over intercepted comms, trembling with defeat. "This is not over, humans, but your time of dominance will be short." Mark stared into the void, her voice cold steel. "We don't fight for time. We fight for survival." Outside, the stars gleamed cold and indifferent as the Death World War raged on. After crippling the flagship, human forces push deeper into hostile space, but the cost weighs heavily on them. Commander Marks faces internal conflict as the psychological toll of endless warfare begins to fracture her resolve. Meanwhile, the Zalrith splinter into factions, some desperate to negotiate, others bent on total annihilation. The true stakes of the conflict reveal themselves as secrets from Earth's darkest past surface. The remnants of the Zalrith fleet scattered like frightened prey, retreating through the star-streaked abyss. The flagship was dead, its systems, offline command fractured. The victory was monumental yet hollow. On board the Vigilance, silence settled in the aftermath like a heavy fog. Commander Elena Marks stood alone in the observation deck, staring out at the shattered battlefield. The stars beyond the viewport shimmered cold and distant, indifferent to the lives extinguished. Her mind replayed every decision, every sacrifice, each face lost in the storm of war. "We did it." Lieutenant Chen's voice broke through the quiet. We struck a crippling blow. Marx turned slowly. At what cost, Chen? How many did we lose to get here? The young officer's gaze faltered. Too many. Marx pressed her hands against the glass. War doesn't forgive doubt, she murmured, but inside, doubt clawed at her. Dr. Lydia Tran joined them, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. The graviton disruptors worked better than expected, but the enemy will adapt quickly. We've bought time, not peace. Marx nodded, sensing the growing shadow behind Tran's words. What do you mean? The Zalrith aren't a single unified force anymore, Tran explained. Their command structure is fracturing. Some factions want to sue for peace. Others, they want to fight to the death. A heavy silence hung between them. The Vigilance's comms crackled to life. An encrypted message from an unknown Zalrith emissary. Mark's voice was steady but wary as she listened. You want to negotiate? She asked aloud. Chen shrugged. Could be a trap or a sign they're finally scared. Marx considered it, her heart torn between relief and suspicion. Prepare a secure channel. I'll hear them out. Far away, on a shadowed moon orbiting a dying star, Zalrith factions gathered in uneasy council. Elder Venthra's regal bearing had faded, replaced by lines of worry and bitterness. Do we surrender? One snarled, claws twitching with rage. We are the ancient rulers of this quadrant. How can we bow to a primitive species? Venthra's voice was cold steel. We do not surrender. But survival demands sacrifice. Our people bleed under their assault. We must seek terms, if only to preserve what remains. Jivrik hissed in contempt. Terms? With humans? They are monsters. Born from death worlds! Their brutality knows no bounds. Venthra fixed him with a hard gaze. They fight for survival, like us, but unlike us, they embrace sacrifice. They endure what no other species can. We underestimate them at our peril. The council fractured, old alliances crumbling under the pressure of desperation. Back on the Vigilance, the negotiation began. The Zalrith emissary spoke with cautious respect. Your people are relentless, your technology, unlike anything we have faced. Mark's reply was blunt. We defend our home. Your fleets attacked first. The emissary's voice softened. Perhaps there was misunderstanding, but your weapons, your ships, are unlike anything we imagined. We seek to avoid mutual destruction. Marx studied the alien words. Beneath them was fear, a rare admission from a species that saw itself as superior. How long can you hold your fractured forces together? Marx asked. Because if this drags on, we will burn your worlds to ashes. The emissary hesitated, then said quietly, Longer than you expect. But you have shaken the stars. We will consider your terms. The channel went silent. Marx felt the weight of every life lost pressing down, yet she knew the war was far from over. That night, aboard the Vigilance, Marx walked the ship's corridors alone. The hum of the engines and distant echoes of the wounded crew reminded her of the fragile line between victory and oblivion. She found Private Rena Vasquez seated on the mess hall floor, clutching a small, worn photograph. A family long left. Behind on Earth, you okay? Marx asked softly. Rena looked up, eyes shimmering. I keep thinking, what if this is all for nothing? What if we don't survive to see home again? Marx sat beside her, voice low but firm. We survive because we fight, because we don't give up. That's what makes us human. Tears welled in Rena's eyes. I'm scared. Good, Marx said. Fear keeps us sharp. But courage is what drives us forward. No matter what the council said, no matter what they ignored, we fight because we must. Elsewhere, deep within Earth's secret archives, Dr. Tran uncovered a forgotten record, ancient genetic files revealing humanity's harshest origins, Deathworld genes, mutations bred in the crucible of uninhabitable planets, granting resilience beyond normal limits. The document detailed secret programs lost to history, experiments in survival and warfare so extreme they bordered on myth. Tran whispered to herself, "This is why they fear us. We are forged from worlds meant to kill us." Her hand hovered over a digital map of Zalrith territory. If we push harder, if we unleash the full power of what Earth's Deathworld legacy can offer. She glanced toward the bridge, where Marks planned their next move. The war was becoming more than survival. It was evolution. In the cold expanse, stars watched silently as two species clashed, one fighting to protect their home, the other fighting to reclaim lost pride. The battle was far from over, but humanity's fire burned brighter than ever. The human fleet prepares for a decisive strike. Cracks form in Commander Marks's leadership under the strain of relentless warfare. Dr. Tran reveals a secret weapon rooted in Earth's darkest scientific past, promising to turn the tide, but at a grave moral cost. Meanwhile, the Zalrith, desperate and fragmented, unleash a devastating counterattack that forces humanity to confront the true horrors of their Deathworld heritage. The Vigilance buzzed with a restless energy, a fleet braced on the edge of a war's next brutal chapter. Commander Elena Marks stood once again on the observation deck, staring into the void where countless stars flickered, distant and indifferent. Her jaw was tight, eyes sharp despite the exhaustion etched in every line on her face. Lieutenant Chen approached quietly. "Commander, the fleet is ready. The strike formation is locked, awaiting your command." Marks didn't turn. "Tell me, Chen, what do you think they fear most? Our weapons? Our ships?" Chen shrugged. "Maybe, or maybe it's us. The fact we keep coming no matter the odds." Marks nodded slowly, her mind drifting. The humans on this mission weren't just soldiers. They were survivors bred on worlds that tried to kill them, trained in pain and sacrifice. But even the strongest minds faltered under endless bloodshed. Her comm chirped. Dr. Lydia Tran's voice was sharp but measured. "Commander, I've found something in the archives. Something that might change everything." Marks's eyes narrowed. "Explain." In the dim glow of the research lab, Tran stood before a sealed case housing a strange device, a relic from a forgotten era of Earth's war-ravaged history. "This," she said, "is a prototype for an adaptive nanoweave cloak combined with a gravitic pulse emitter. It's experimental, borderline dangerous, but it could turn the tide." Marks crossed the room, eyes on the device. "Dangerous how?" "Nanotech that rewrites molecular bonds on the fly. It could allow a ship to become nearly invisible to sensors, but it's volatile. Unstable graviton emissions might cause feedback that can cripple both the target and the user." Marks considered this carefully. "You're saying we could launch a stealth strike deep into Zalrith space?" Tran nodded. "We could slip past their defenses, disable key command vessels, maybe even their weapon arrays. But if it fails, it fails. We lose everything." Marks finished grimly. The commander's mind raced. The war had pushed them to this point. Desperate gambits or certain defeat. "I want your team to prepare the prototype for deployment," Marks ordered. "But this stays off the fleet's manifest. No one but us can know." As the humans scrambled to prepare the experimental weapon, far from the Vigilance, the Zalrith Council's divisions deepened. Elder Venthra stood in the grand chamber of the shattered command citadel, watching the chaos unfold. "You think they will?" "Stop!" hissed Jivrak, his voice edged with fury. Venthra's gaze was cold. "No, but they will falter. They always do." Suddenly, the chamber trembled with a brutal shockwave. The first devastating counterattack from the Zalrith's remaining forces. Venthra's eyes widened as her screens lit up with images of human outposts under siege, ships engulfed in plasma storms, worlds scorched by relentless bombardment. "They fight like demons," she whispered, "like death itself." Back on the Vigilance, alarms screamed. The Dalrith had struck faster than anticipated. Commander Marks barked orders, her voice cutting through the chaos. Damage reports. Shields holding. Lieutenant Chen's voice was grim. Some sectors breached. We're losing a frigate. Divert all power to the secondary shields. Ready countermeasures. Marks stared at the tactical map. Red blips surged toward human strongholds, threatening to undo everything they'd fought for. The weight of command pressed down like a crushing gravity. That night, Marks retreated to the observation deck again, haunted by memories of those lost. Private Rena Vasquez joined her quietly, clutching her worn photograph. "We can't keep running," Rena said softly. "It's like we're fighting ghosts, shadows that never die." Marks nodded. "I know. But we're more than ghosts. We're the fire that burns through darkness." Her voice cracked just a little. "Sometimes I wonder how much of ourselves we lose in the fight." Rena looked up, eyes bright with a fierce hope. "Maybe that's what makes us human. Not the victories, not the tech, but the will to keep going when everything tries to break us." Meanwhile, in a hidden Earth facility deep beneath the Antarctic ice, Dr. Tran activated the prototype nanoweave. Cloak, a sleek human warship, shimmered and vanished from visible sight, sensors flickering as the gravitic pulse rippled out. "It's working," Tran whispered. Back in the command center, Marks received the confirmation. "Prepare to launch." "The stealth strike," she ordered. "This is our moment." But as the cloak ship sped into Zalrith territory, the unexpected happened. The graviton pulse reactor overloaded, sending a shockwave that ripped through the stealth field, revealing the vessel in a blinding burst of energy. The Zalrith flagship, alerted by the pulse, turned its weapons on the exposed ship. "Evasive maneuvers!" the pilot shouted. Explosions rippled through the void as the prototype warship was hit, systems failing. Marks clenched her fists. The gamble had failed. Back on the observation deck, Marks looked out at the stars, heavy with the cost. The war was no longer just about survival. It was about embracing the brutal legacy humanity carried: Deathworld genes, relentless willpower, and a future forged in sacrifice. If they failed, entire worlds would burn. If they succeeded, it would only be because they never stopped fighting. The silence of space stretched on, cold, endless, and waiting. After the failed stealth strike, cracks widen in the human command as desperation threatens to unravel their unity. Commander Marks faces her darkest doubts while Dr. Tran races to stabilize the volatile technology. Meanwhile, the Zalrith unleash a ruthless boarding assault on a critical human outpost, pushing soldiers to the edge. Sacrifices and betrayals blur the line between victory and annihilation. Commander Eleanor Marks sat alone in the command chamber, her fingers tapping a restless rhythm on the holotable. The failed stealth strike haunted every corner of her mind, each flashing image a scar she couldn't erase. Why did it fail? She muttered, eyes scanning the erratic data streams pouring in. Dr. Lydia Tran entered quietly, the tension in her face as sharp as the cold air. "It's the graviton feedback," Tran said without preamble. "The prototype isn't stable. The nanoweave destabilizes under real combat conditions. The tech needs more time we don't have." Marks's jaw clenched. "We don't have time, Lydia. We have to act before the Zalrith crush every foothold we have." Tran hesitated, then lowered her voice. "There is a way. I'm working on a patch to reduce the overload risk, but it means risking the ship's core integrity, potentially catastrophic." "Anything," Mark said grimly, "anything to give us an edge." The Vigilance's comm channels crackled with urgent reports. "Commander, Zalrith boarding parties have breached Outpost 17's outer defenses," Lieutenant Chen reported, voice tight. "They're moving fast. Resistance is faltering." Mark stood, the weight of command pressing down like a crushing tide. "Dispatch Phoenix Squadron immediately. Hold the line at all costs." In the barracks, Private Rena Vasquez and her squad geared up with grim determination. We don't get a second chance, Rena whispered to her comrades. If we lose this, the entire sector falls. The squad moved out, weapons humming with energy, every heartbeat pounding like a war drum. The Zalrith borders struck with savage precision, claws tearing through reinforced bulkheads, plasma, blades igniting in deadly arcs. "Hold position!" Sergeant Malik shouted, rallying his troops amid the chaos. "Don't let them breach the core chamber." Rena's breath came in short gasps as she fought through the narrowing corridors. The smell of scorched metal and burning flesh filled the air. Suddenly, a flashbang detonated, blinding her momentarily. When her vision cleared, a Zalrith warrior lunged from the shadows. Steel met flesh as Rena's rifle collided with the alien's blade. The warrior snarled, relentless. "Cover me!" she shouted, firing precise bursts that forced the enemy. Back on the Vigilance, Marks paced the command deck, the echoes of battle weighing on her soul. "Why are they like this?" she murmured to herself. "Why do they fight with such fury, such desperation?" Dr. Tran appeared beside her. "Because they know what's at stake. They don't have the luxury of hope." Marks nodded slowly. "We've always underestimated the cost. The sacrifice that defines them." In a secret lab deep inside the Vigilance, Tran worked feverishly, her hands steady despite the stakes. "Just a few more adjustments," she whispered to herself, recalibrating the nanoweave matrix. The patched prototype hummed with unstable energy, a fragile promise hanging by a thread. Suddenly, alarms screamed throughout the fleet. The Zalrith flagship was launching a new assault, their massive dreadnoughts advancing with overwhelming force. "Shields down to 30%, Chen reported. "We can't hold this long." Marks's voice was a steely edge. "Redirect all remaining power to the front lines. We fight here or we die." On the battlefield, Rena and her squad made a final stand as the Zalrith pressed their assault deeper into the outpost. "Last wave incoming," she warned. Plasma fire lit up the corridors, screams echoing in the chaos. A sudden explosion rocked the chamber. The wall behind them collapsed, sending rubble raining down. Rena pushed through the pain, dragging a wounded soldier to safety. "We don't leave anyone behind," she vowed fiercely. Back on the Vigilance, Marks faced the impossible. A fleet stretched thin, technology on, the brink of collapse, and an enemy whose ferocity defied all reason. Her comm crackled again. "Commander, the patched nanoweave prototype is ready," Tran said. "But I won't lie. This is a leap into the void." Marks took a long breath, the faces of her crew flashing before her eyes. "Prepare for launch," she ordered. "This is our last chance." The new stealth ship vanished into the void, a ghost cutting through enemy lines. But as it slipped deeper, into Zalrith territory, Marks felt the familiar gnaw of doubt. Would this gambit be their salvation, or the final thread that unravels them all? The silence of space seemed heavier than ever. The war was far from over, and the edge of collapse had never felt so close. The stealth mission into Zalrith territory tests the limits of human technology and nerve. Commander Marks and the elite crew navigate through deadly traps and psychological warfare. Meanwhile, the Zalrith unravel human tactics and retaliate with brutal precision. Tensions rise as both sides face ghosts of past defeats and imminent death. The stealth cruiser Phantom slipped silently through the void, a shard of darkness moving between stars. Its nanoweave hull shimmered faintly, refracting light like a ghost, invisible but deadly. Commander Eleanor Marks stood at the helm, eyes sharp beneath the dim blue glow of the cockpit. The silence was thick, almost suffocating. Every creak and hum of the ship echoed in her mind like a warning. "Status report," Marks commanded. Lieutenant Patel's voice was steady but tense. "Nanoweave matrix holding at 98%. Cloaking stable. No signs of Zalrith patrols in sector." "Good," Marks breathed. "But stay sharp. This is their backyard. Any mistake could be our last. Below decks, specialist. Rena Vasquez checked her weapons, every movement deliberate. The memories of Outpost 17's massacre burned in her mind. She was here to make sure this mission didn't end the same way. The Phantom's mission was simple, yet deadly. Infiltrate the Xalrith command nexus and upload a virus to cripple their fleet's targeting systems. It was the last hope for buying time, but the deeper they ventured, the heavier the air felt. Suddenly, the ship's sensors flared. "Contact!" Patel shouted. "Xalrith drones, swarming fast." Mark's jaw tightened. "Engage evasive maneuvers. Keep cloaking active." The Phantom twisted and darted through asteroid debris, the drone's pulse lasers flickering just beyond the ship's shimmer. One drone locked on, a streak of lethal light seared toward them. "Deploy countermeasures," Marks ordered. A burst of electromagnetic pulses cascaded outward, frying the closest drone's circuits. Still, the swarm pressed on, relentless. In the command deck, Marks felt a cold spike of fear, not for herself, but for the crew. The Xalriths. Persistence was unlike any foe they'd faced. "Why won't they quit?" she whispered, eyes scanning the starfield. Lieutenant Patel glanced over, grim. "Because they don't fear death. They see it as purification." Marks swallowed hard. "We can't afford to think like that, not now." Meanwhile, aboard the Xalrith flagship Vecthar, High Admiral Sithar watched the holographic feed of the Phantom's intrusion. "How do they continue to defy us?" Sithar growled, claws tapping on the console. "My lord," a subordinate answered, "human technology is unpredictable. Their nanoweave stealth tech disrupts our senses." Sithar's eyes narrowed, a rare flicker of unease crossing his face. "Prepare countermeasures. If we lose the targeting network, the entire fleet is vulnerable." Back on the Phantom, alarms blared. "Hull breach in Sector 4, an engineer shouted. Rena bolted from her station to help seal the rupture. The sudden shock of impact rattled through the ship. "Sabotage!" she snarled. "They're inside!" Marks clenched her fists. The enemy wasn't just outside, they had infiltrators, ghosts in the void. The corridors echoed with eerie silence. Shadows flickered as human and alien fought for control. "Push forward," Marks ordered. "We must reach the command nexus." Each step was a battle, every door a potential trap. Rena led a squad clearing rooms, every movement shadowed by the threat of ambush. One Xalrith warrior leapt from concealment. Claws extended, a flash of plasma, a desperate grapple, and then silence. Marks reached the virus deployment console, fingers trembling as she connected the data spike. "Uploading now," she whispered. Suddenly, the feed went dark. "Communications." "Cut out," a voice crackled over comms, distorted, almost mocking. "Your courage is admirable, humans, but futile." Mark's blood ran cold. The Xalrith had anticipated this. Time slowed as the virus fought the fleet's defense systems, a digital battle waged in silence. "Almost there," Mark said, sweat beading on her brow. Then, a surge of energy hit the ship's core. "Warning," light screamed. The Phantom lurched violently. In the chaos, Marks made a choice. "Initiate emergency evacuation," she ordered. "We're abandoning ship." Rena grabbed the last surviving squad members, sprinting to escape pods as the Phantom shuddered under fire. The last thing Mark saw before ejecting was the hull, rupturing, a fireball blossoming against the stars. Drifting in the cold emptiness of space, Marks and her crew watched helplessly as the Phantom was consumed by flames. But in the data streams of their comm devices, a faint message flickered. "Virus. Upload. Successful." Back on the Vecthar, alarms roared. Systems flickered, targeting arrays blinking offline. Sithar roared in rage, pounding his console. Humanity's ghost has struck. Marks stared out into the void, the weight of survival heavy. On her shoulders. "We're not done," she vowed. "This war is far from over." As the virus cripples the Zalrith fleet's targeting systems, chaos erupts among their ranks. Commander Marks and her team use this window to rally scattered human forces, but internal fractures threaten their unity. Meanwhile, the Zalrith's brutal retaliation intensifies, forcing difficult sacrifices and uncovering hidden human technologies. The battle for survival becomes a fight to break free from the chains of fear and expectation. The void trembled with shattered silence. Across the Zalrith armada, targeting arrays flickered and died, once precise, now blind. Missiles that should have found their mark veered off into the abyss, and energy cannons sputtered with uncertain fury. Commander Elena Marks stared at the cascading failures with cold satisfaction, but the war was far from won. "Status update," she demanded. Lieutenant Chen's voice was strained but hopeful. "Targeting systems on the flagship and 3 battlecruisers are down. Enemy fire is erratic. This is our chance." Marks nodded. "Rally all nearby fleets. We strike now with everything we've got." Across the human lines, scattered units scrambled to reorganize. Outpost 17, still smoldering from the Zalrith boarding attack, was barely holding, but word of the crippled enemy spread like wildfire. Captain Rajesh, Kumar leading the ragtag defenders, barked orders. "Fortify every breach. Focus fire on enemy command nodes." Private Rena Vasquez rejoined the fray, battered but alive. "We fight like this, we win like this," she said, rallying her squad. Back on the Vigilance, Dr. Lydia Tran and her team worked feverishly, enhancing the patched nanoweave tech. "The virus bought us a moment," Tran said. "We can upgrade our defenses with cloaking bursts and EMP bursts synchronized with the nanoweave. It might hold the line." Marks exhaled. "Then let's make every second count." The Zalrith, leaderless but unbroken, rallied their cruel spirit. High Admiral Sithar's fury boiled over as he struggled to maintain order. "Punish them," he growled. "Make them regret every breath." The Zalrith unleashed orbital bombardments on human colonies, merciless, indiscriminate. Whole cities burned in crimson storms. In the midst of the firestorm, a new weapon was revealed, a human prototype gravity cannon capable of ripping through enemy dreadnoughts. Lieutenant Patel's voice crackled with excitement. "It's working. We're breaking their shields." Marks felt hope flicker. "Deploy it where it counts most." But internal tensions threatened to unravel the fragile alliance. Some commanders argued for retreat, others for total annihilation. Marks confronted her council. "This war isn't just about survival. It's about reclaiming humanity's honor. We stand or we fall, together." On the battlefield, sacrifices piled high. Rena's squad made a final push, covering the retreat of wounded civilians. "We leave no one behind," she vowed again, even as the enemy pressed harder. The battle raged, death and fury clashing with hope and grit. Marks's voice rang out across comms. "Hold fast, fight smart. Humanity is watching." In the silence after the storm, the first rays of victory glimmered, but the war was far from over. The chains that bound them were breaking, but freedom demanded a price. Human forces pressed toward the heart of the Zalrith command system, but the enemy's desperation fuels vicious counterattacks. Commander Marks faces impossible choices as trusted allies fall and unknown alien tech surfaces. The line between survival and extinction blurs as humanity teeters on the edge of oblivion, and a final haunting revelation threatens to change everything. The stars outside the Bridge of Vigilance flickered as distant explosions painted the void in violent colors. Commander Elena Marks stood rigid, eyes locked on the holographic map. "We're close," she said, "but this will be their last stand." The Zalrith had turned their fear into fury. Entire squadrons launched kamikaze assaults. Plasma bursts lit the dark, and the hum of gravitic weapons tore through space like thunder. Lieutenant Chen's voice cracked over the comm. Multiple drone swarms inbound, defenses holding but weakening. Marx's knuckles whitened on the console. Prep. The gravity cannon will need everything. Below decks, Specialist Rena Vasquez moved with grim determination, loading plasma rifles and checking ammunition. "We're fighting shadows now," she muttered. "Ghosts who refuse to die." Her squad was battered but unbroken. Every scar was a story of loss, pain, and raw determination. Suddenly a tremor rocked the ship. "Impact on Deck 7, an engineer shouted. In the chaos, a new threat emerged. Alien nanites, small metallic swarms, invaded Vigilance's systems, infiltrating the ship's AI and disrupting controls. Dr. Lydia Tran's face was pale. "These nanites are adaptive. They learn from our countermeasures." Marx paced, heart hammering. "How do we stop them?" Tran shook her head. "We can't, not yet." Outside, the Zalrith flagship Vecthar loomed, a fortress of cruel technology and ancient menace. Sithar's voice rang cold and sharp. "Crush them. No mercy." Suddenly, the flagship's shields pulsed with unknown energy, a wave that bent space itself. Gravity twisted, light distorted. Marx watched in horror. "What is that?" Lieutenant Patel gasped. "A gravity well generator. They're warping space-time to trap us." Trapped in the crushing gravity field, Vigilance's systems struggled. The gravity cannon overcharged, but struggled to penetrate. The shield. Marx felt the crushing pressure in her chest, not just from the weapon, but from the weight of command. "We either break through now or we die here," she said, voice low but fierce. As the battle raged, Marx's comm crackled. "Commander, you need to see this," Patel said. A live feed showed the Zalrith command deck, flickering with strange symbols, alien language warped with human glyphs. "It's a hybrid system," Patel said. "Somewhere between their tech and ours." Marx's breath caught. "Where did they get that?" A sudden explosion rocked Vigilance, throwing everyone off balance. Rena gritted her teeth, gripping her rifle tighter. "They're evolving, faster than we thought." In the dark corners of the ship, a whispered truth emerged. Mark's second-in-command, Captain Rajesh Kumar, approached her quietly. "There's something you're not telling us," he said. Marx hesitated. "The Zalrith weapon, it's based on stolen human tech from before the war." Kumar's eyes narrowed. "That changes everything." The revelation shook their resolve. If the enemy had human technology, where else were the lines blurred? Marx looked out into the stars, heart heavy but unyielding. "We fight not just for survival," she said, "but for the future of humanity, no matter the cost." The gravity well pulsed again, warping space, crushing hope. But in the darkest moments, the human spirit flared. The Vigilance charged forward, towards the edge of oblivion, cornered within. The gravity well's crushing grip. Humanity's forces ignite a desperate counterstrike. Bonds fracture and form in the heat of chaos, while Marx confronts the devastating cost of command. The enemy's stolen technology reveals a tragic connection between species, forcing a reckoning that challenges everything humanity believed. Amidst the ash and ruin, defiance burns brightest. The air in the command chamber was thick with tension and the hum of failing systems. Elena Marx stood framed by the panoramic viewport, watching stars twist and fade into distorted orbits inside. The Zalrith gravity well. The ship shuddered as structural warnings screamed. "We're running out of time," Patel reported. "Hull integrity at 42% and dropping." Mark's jaw clenched. "Then we burn it all down if we have to." The Vigilance's corridors echoed with the hurried footsteps of soldiers and engineers alike, everyone a heartbeat racing against oblivion. In the armory, Specialist Rena Vasquez distributed experimental plasma grenades with nanotech enhancements, little bombs, designed to disrupt alien nanites infiltrating their systems. "This is no ordinary fight," Rena said grimly. "It's survival at a molecular level." On the bridge, Lieutenant Chen monitored incoming data streams. Enemy fighters are swarming our rear flank. Command systems remain unstable. Our AI is compromised. Marks turned sharply. Deploy manual override teams. We're going analog. No more reliance on compromised systems. Meanwhile, Captain Rajesh Kumar gathered a strike team. We're taking the fight to the enemy, he declared. We sever the head, the body dies. Marks nodded. Go with my blessing. Kumar's squad slipped into the maintenance shafts, shadows against the creeping chaos. Back in the Zalrith flagship's twisted command core, Scythar's eyes burned with fury and desperation. They think this stolen tech will save them, he hissed. They don't understand the price we paid for it. His voice faltered, memories surfacing, echoes of a forbidden past, shared history buried beneath war's rubble. Kumar's team moved like ghosts, their plasma blades humming silently. They cut through alien sentries with precise strikes. Every second a gamble. Suddenly Kumar paused before a data terminal, fingers flying over the alien script fused with human code. This hybrid system, it's a message, Marks's voice crackled urgently. What kind of message? Kumar's eyes widened. A warning. From the architects of this weapon, humans who were lost long ago. Back on the Vigilance, Dr. Tran's voice was urgent. Over the comm, I'm decoding fragments of the tech's origin. It's tied to a secret human experiment, Project Lazarus. They sought to weaponize gravity itself, Mark swallowed hard. Weapons that bend space-time. We were the first. Deathworld, the revelation hit hard. Humanity's dark past, the origin of their own nightmare weapon, now wielded by their enemy. Marks felt the crushing weight of legacy. Is this why the Zalrith are so relentless? She whispered. Because they fear what we once became? Outside. The ship, the gravity well intensified, a living prison. But inside, human defiance sparked. Chen's voice cut through the static. Override teams restored partial control, shields stabilizing. Marks allowed herself a brief smile. Good. Now we break this cage. A final coordinated strike was launched. Kumar's team breached the core, planting nanotech disruptors that pulsed with deadly precision. The Zalrith flagship shuddered, systems failing amid chaos. As the gravity well destabilized, the stars began to realign. Marks stared into the void, knowing the war was far from over, but for the first time, hope burned fierce. We will rise from the ashes, she vowed. Not as victims, but as victors. The Vigilance broke free, battered but unbroken, and humanity's defiance echoed across the stars. In the shattered remnants of battle, humanity and the Zalrith confront the truth buried beneath generations of war. Commander Marks faces impossible, choices that will shape the galaxy's future. As ancient secrets rise, the cost of survival becomes clear. But from the ashes of devastation, a new dawn of reckoning and uneasy hope begins. The void was quiet, eerily silent after the storm of war. The Vigilance drifted, scarred but alive, near the fractured core of the Zalrith flagship. The gravity well had collapsed, stars gently resuming their orbits as if waking from a nightmare. Elena Marks stood on the bridge, eyes heavy yet resolute. Around her, the crew moved like ghosts, exhaustion etched deep, but fire burning still. The comm crackled. Commander, a message from the Zalrith survivors, Patel said, voice tense. Marks activated the feed. Sithar's face appeared, pale and worn, stripped of arrogance, replaced by raw truth. You humans, you do not understand, he said quietly. This war was born of fear and betrayal. Our stolen technology was not a weapon of conquest, but a desperate bid for survival. Mark swallowed hard, the weight of the revelation crashing through her. We both carry sins we cannot erase, she replied, but this cycle ends now. In the ship's hold, Dr. Lydia Tran and Captain Rajesh Kumar sifted through the recovered archives, digital echoes of Project Lazarus and the Zalrith's tragic history. Human scientists, desperate to survive a cataclysmic past, had fractured their own soul, birthing a weapon too terrible to control. The Zalrith, once allies turned enemies, had stolen that power, fueled by their own desperation. Marks walked through the corridors, past injured soldiers and shattered walls, the silence broken only by distant alarms and whispered prayers. Her gaze hardened. We didn't just fight for survival. We fought to reclaim our future. The remaining Zalrith forces agreed to a ceasefire, fragile but real. Negotiations began, with humanity stepping into a role they never sought, the arbiters of galactic peace. On the bridge, Mark stared out into the dawn of a new star system, the first light cresting the horizon of war. "We survived the death world," she said softly, "and now we begin to heal." But in the quiet moments, she knew the true reckoning had just begun. Not just with the aliens, but within themselves. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had shattered the myth of their weakness, rising from betrayal and ashes to claim their place, and the stars whispered one truth above all: this was only the beginning.